we're investigating the death of Andy Andolshek. Andy Andolshek died on the Saturday afternoon at 11 o'clock in 1947. Andy Andolshek was 39. He was the sheriff at the Baker County Sheriff's Department. He was found in the Fallon County Jail. He was found laying in the anteroom of the jail, shot to the heart, no photo of the victim, and only a photo of the shotgun was given. It is only assumed that the sawed-off shotgun was used for the death of Andy Andolshek. This case was a suspected suicide, but due to new evidence, it has been since reopened. Because of evidence given, three new suspects were added to the crime scene. His stepsister, Mary Satink, William Holmes, and his fiancée, Elvina Manfreda. Although it is possible for Andy Andolshek to have committed suicide using the sawed-off shotgun, it is not a plausible way for him to have committed suicide. Andy Andolshek's arm length on average would have been about 27.7 inches. A average sawed-off shotgun is around 26 inches, not leaving enough leeway for him to be able to pull the trigger given the position of the shotgun. As you can see, I have short arms, but if you were to wrap around a sawed-off shotgun, you would have to hold the barrel here, meaning that there would be damage to his hand. Based on the kickback, it would also kick the shotgun back this way, not leaving the shotgun lying in his hand after he had committed suicide, meaning that someone may have placed the shotgun in his hand after shooting Andy Andolshek. At the scene of the crime, we found what is believed to be a suicide note from Andy Andolshek. It reads, "To whom it may concern, what I have done in the past in the war has finally gotten to me. I can't go on anymore. The life I have is too difficult to live. I can't keep going on with the thoughts of what I did. The memories still haunt me. With this final act, maybe they will end. In hopes you will all forgive me, I leave my final will at the bottom. To my beloved Elvina, I leave all my possessions, including the farm and money." Signed, Andy Andolshek. Also found at the scene of the crime were letters from his fiancée, Elvina Manfreda. Each of these has its own section of evidence, which we will get to later. This is the will of Andy Andolshek, leaving all possessions to his fiancée, Elvina Manfreda. Also found with the letters from his fiancée, we found Andy Andolshek's journal. Note that these journals refer to his episodes. These episodes refer to his struggle with PTSD from being in the war. Also found at the scene of the crime was this white box, which includes burned ballots. Each of these ballots are for votes for the Deputy Sheriff, William Holmes, which we believe have been burned by Andy Andolshek. So also found at the scene of the crime was a recipe box belonging to his stepsister, Mary Satink. The incriminating evidence in this box were castor beans, which can be used to make a paste, which is poisonous. This recipe was written in Mary Satink's handwriting. However, others also had access to this recipe box. Firstly, we need to address the fact of the inscriptions. As you can see here, Andy Andolshek signs his name like so. On the suicide note found at the scene of the crime, it does not match his original handwriting, nor does it match his fingerprint chart, which he signed in his own hand. Andrew Andolshek. Also, it must be noted that the handwriting seems to match that of his fiancée, Elvina Manfreda, on both his will and his suicide note. As you can see, she has thicker handwriting, and it's almost a more feminine signature. And it must be noted that the signature does match that of Elvina Manfreda's fingerprint chart and that of his will and the letters from Elvina. Why can't I find it? There it is. So given here, you can see that Elvina Manfreda's signature matches up with her fingerprint chart. The letters to Andy Andolshek. The will supposedly signed by Andy Andolshek. So this, in turn, would incriminate Elvina Manfreda because it also matches up with that note found at the crime scene. Furthermore, in her letters to Andy, we get referrals to his stepfather Martin. It may be noted that his stepfather Martin was struggling from heart disease, and Andy was in search of a cure for this. In order to supposedly help Andy with his father's heart disease, Elvina Manfreda sent him a form of international medicine, supposedly, that she calls poitras. The chemical structure of poitras can be found at the bottom of this letter that she sent to Andy Andolshek. However, the chemical structure of poitras matches up with that of ricin. It is unknown whether or not she knew that it matched the chemical structure. She refers to a Dr. Stillmark, which supposedly prescribed this medicine to her for Martin. It may be noted that weeks later, Andy's stepfather Martin died of unknown causes. In Andy's journal, we can tell that he is struggling from something. He is afraid that Elvina will find out something. We can only assume that this is that he will not actually get the estate to the farm, which he is supposedly supposed to inherit in the will. We can also, it must be noted that he is afraid of his Deputy Sheriff William Holmes finding out about something, and that he is afraid he will get in trouble for this said thing. Now, due to evidence, we can only assume that he is referring to the burnt ballots of William Holmes, which can also be found in this box. It must be noted that each of these ballots has a check marked for William Holmes. Since William Holmes was very popular in the community, we can only assume that Andy Andolshek was afraid to lose his sheriff position to William Holmes. So whether or not Elvina arrived in the U.S. And found out that he was not actually inheriting the farm, and it resulted in her murder of Andy Andolshek is unknown, but we can assume that Elvina Manfreda was involved in the murder of Andy Andolshek, and this is why. Other detectives and I performed ink chromatographies on each piece of evidence. It must be noted that each of these started out as a black mark, and ink chromatography extends the pigments of the evidence in order to see what they're made up of. As you can see here, the chromatography from Andy's fingerprint chart, Mary's recipe, Andy's journal, Mary's finger, and William's finger charts do not actually add up and match the ink used for his will, Elvina's letters, the crime scene note, and Elvina's fingerprint chart. But they do match each of these supposedly done by Elvina. Elvina signed her fingerprint chart in her own hand and her own letters. So we can only conclude that she used the same pen for the crime scene note and the will incriminating her for Andy Andolshek's death. It must be noted that in these times, women often wore gloves, which could have been the possible reason why they did not lift a fingerprint of Elvina from the weapon. However, they did lift a fingerprint from William Holmes. But it also must be noted that the owner of the sawed-off shotgun is unknown, so it could have been William Holmes's gun. As you can see here, you have a little hill coming off here, and it's almost like a wave, and it matches the fingerprint lifted from the trigger of the shotgun. But to restate, it could have been William Holmes's shotgun, which is why his fingerprint was lifted off of it. So although this piece of evidence may incriminate him, we do not believe that he was actually the murderer in this trial. The recipe box found at the scene of the crime belonged to his stepsister, Mary Satink. It included 8 castor beans, and as I said before, the recipe for the ricin. Some may say that this incriminates Mary Satink. However, other people had access to her recipe box, which may have been the reason that other people may have found it. We do believe that Elvina Manfreda is the culprit of this murder. Her fingerprints were not found at the scene of the crime, but the other evidence does point to Elvina Manfreda to be the culprit.
You done?